Hey, look behind me. New art.
I know. That's gorgeous.
So I do this one show and she says, "Mark, if you don't change your background," because I had that thing that looked like it
Mhm.
was coming out of my head, which was a gift from my gorgeous bride. And it had a lot of symbolism and meaning, deep meaning to me. But so do the palm trees of Santa Barbara. But so that's my change. And I got a new camera so you can see all the reflections of
Well,
my
actually,
old
you look
face.
fantastic. Now I'm a little jealous here, my man.
Oh gosh, I got a camera that is very big in the TikTok community because it's very small and it has an AI built into it, so it will follow you around the room. So if you were setting up your deal and you're doing dance videos, you're doing construction how-to videos or
Mm,
unboxing or any of that kind of thing, it just works great,
it
great
follows you
quality,
automatically.
does all that stuff. So
That's amazing.
it's sweet and it's nice and it kind of leads me into what I'd love to talk about. I have two things that I think are interesting and I think they're related.
Okay, throw them out. Let's see what happens.
Um, when you close your eyes, how old are you?
I've never actually even thought about that.
That's why you have me on the show.
That's true.
Close your eyes.
I've
How old are you?
probably mid to late 50s is what I feel.
That's what you feel. Yeah.
Mhm.
When you look in the mirror, how old are you?
Probably 60 something. I don't see myself as when I look in the mirror, I don't go, "Oh, you're 73." I don't do that.
I do. So I
Oh.
avoid the mirror. I'd be just fine if there were no mirrors.
Okay.
Because when I close my eyes, I'm somewhere in my 20s, probably my late 20s.
Mm,
The way I travel through the world is that energetically is as a maybe 32 years old, but that's about it. That's how I'm going through the world.
mm.
And then I'll catch a glimpse of myself and I'm like, shoot, you're old. But when I if I say that out loud to someone in a conversation in somewhere, they'll go, "Well, how old are you?" And I'll say, "I'm 69 years old." And they go, "No." Like no one believes that.
Mhm.
So I think that youthful inside projects outside, yet I still look and I go, "Yeah, dude, you're old." And I think about it more than I want to think about it there. I'll leave it there. I don't want to
Um,
think about it as much as I do, yet I am.
got it. So that's really interesting when you say that about feeling 30 something inside. One of the things that impressed me about you in Austin is that's how you handle things. You didn't handle things as an quote old man. I mean, there were, like some transportation glitches and all kinds of little things. And it was like, oh, okay. And I was really impressed with that. And what's interesting to me is when I say, 50s, 50-ish, like probably early 50s, that was a time in my life where I was very fit. I was mature enough to really be in the world the way I like to be in the
Mm,
world.
mm, mm,
Um, I was learning new things. What's interesting to me is that I can look back and go, when I was 50-ish, I could still do most of the things I could do when I was 20 or 30 physically. I'm not able to do all of those things the same way I used to be able to now. It also leads me to, I mean, a ton of things are going on inside, like bio age versus chronological age versus um, in some ways medical age. A couple of years ago, I had a thing where they scanned my carotid arteries, and it was just a checkup, and it was like, oh, arterial age is what they said. It was my arterial age was 53,
Mm,
and I had no blockages at all. So, um, I mean, those kinds of things, and we recently, Kimberly and I were in Ohio, visiting family, and there were three other men who were very similar in age to me. I'll be 73 in July. My brother-in-law, who's about a year older than me, Kimberly's stepfather, who is probably maybe 2 years older than me, and then um, Kimberly's mother and he have divorced, and her mother's remarried to another man who's in his early 70s. And all three of them had very significant physical issues
mhm.
that they were dealing with. And it just struck me, even though you know, I'm not as flexible as I used to be. I did jujitsu with Robert on Wednesday and got pushed really hard and felt really good and
He's like
ended
that.
up very sore. So I was like, thank you, Robert. And I really mean that. Thank you, Robert. This getting older thing it's an interesting journey.
In in traveling to Austin, I was around a lot of people for the first time in a while. I had been in Ohio, as you know, a few weeks before. Did a little bit of traveling here, so I've been in and out of airports, and I see people my same age, and I feel, oh, I'm in that group now,
Hmm.
and I don't know if it's my hippie roots, because it could be, is don't trust anybody over 30. That was I grew up, and, I don't know if that was a thing for you, but in the world I lived
Oh,
in,
yeah, it
do
was a
not
really big
trust
thing.
anybody over 30.
Hmm.
And so that's so deep in my soul. I look and wow, I'm in that group. I'm semi-retired, and I work out of the house, and I do chores during the day. And the only people I run into are older people who are out, who are not working, and they're out. And I was
Hmm.
like, oh, I'm one of you guys. And it's just, I don't know that it's bugging me, but I'm aware of it,
Mm.
right? It's just I'm aware of it. That's all. I'll leave it there. I want to let's take that age thing now, and then I'm working on a project now where I'm trying to understand. I want to understand the role of learning, and what does lifelong learning mean, and what should I have learned by the time I was 35, 45, 55, go in reverse, 25, 15, 10, 5. If I were to have a syllabus, a life syllabus of the things I learned, about friendship, about relationship, about uh, being a citizen, being an employee, being an employer, these major things that I've gone through, if there was a life syllabus, what of that would have had me better prepared at 25, 35, 45, 55?
Mm.
And some people get stuck and they've learned everything they were going to learn by 30, and then they just rinse and repeat that, and there's no new learning. And then there's some, like I'm a lifelong learner, but I really want to understand that, because I think if I can help people unlock that, if that's possible, it might be just a curiosity gene that I've got. How do we integrate learning into our life, and does age affect our ability to learn? There's the question.
I don't know that I would suggest that age in and of itself suggests the ability to learn. What I would suggest is that we get messages, societal messages, that there's a cutoff someplace in our learning process. That once you reach blank age or once you reach blank ability or knowledge, that you don't have to learn anymore. And my experience is that that's someplace in the vicinity of late 30s, early 40s
Hmm.
when we go into, we usually have a major shift in late 40s, developmentally, that that we can either step into or not. From mid 20s to about mid 40s, a huge amount of what we're trying to learn is is about who am I in relationship.
Okay.
And that's sort of the big question. Who am I in relationship? Am I a husband? Am I a partner? Am I a friend? Am I and how do I do that? Where do I fit? Do I lead? Do I support? Do I ask for support? I mean, all like, who am I in relationship? Because adolescence is sort of figuring out who am I. And that's where we really form a lot of our values. The next level developmentally is who am I in relationship, which is also forming values around relationship. There's also a major place in there that not only are we looking at who am I in relationship, we're looking at who am I in relationship to my work, my
Mm, mm, mm.
profession, my place in the world as a man, all of those things sort of coincide. After that, we move into a phase that many call the phase of generativity.
Generativity.
Yeah, generativity
Ooh,
in
I've
our
got
late
the
40s.
buzzword bingo going on right now.
Yeah, isn't that cool? And what that means is it's like, oh, we have progressed through our company and now we're a supervisor, we're a leader in some ways, or we're a leader in our field, or we're trying to do new things, or those sorts of things. And it's a real choice point for people. It's like, am I going to be generative and really put something together, or am I sort of going to slide and keep putting widgets together for the next 20 years until I retire? And
So I'm going to
and
ask a question because I know I've got a visual going on in my head right now
perfect.
that there's this one curve. Let's call it my professional, being a professional, being generative. Let's put that.
Hmm.
And that is 0 to 100. And at
Sure.
some point, if you're fully generative, that curve goes up like this. And if you are making widgets, which I would call being technical, being just doing the work, being the
Hmm.
person doing the work, that that curve tends to be high because I'm doing all the work. And then it drops to where I'm not doing any of the work. I'm doing being the manager, being the director, to your
Hmm.
point, right? And it's at that cross point where those curves cross, where you decide, am I jumping on the curve that's going up or am I staying on the curve that's going down? Because I can do less, my body can't do as much, I'm not as quick, I'm et cetera, et cetera. Did I get that right, Doc?
Yeah, actually, I hadn't put it in those exact terms. And yes, and
Because
the
I know exactly when that happened for me when I was 40. And
mm,
I was told I needed to use my talents to be generative and stop doing the work. Stop doing the thing. And I, at 40, I was 10 years into my computer animation career, and I loved doing computer animation. I didn't like managing
mhm,
developers and programmers and all that stuff. have zero interest in it. And it was very much pointed out to me, I should be the leader. I said, I'm leading. By what I do. And to this day, I still prefer that being the doer part. So I did make a choice. And because of that, that I think is the lifelong learning, because there's new skills you need to continue to do that, right? I need to learn how to do this. I need to learn how to, I do all my own graphics. I do all my own recording. I do all my own this and all of that stuff. It's constantly learning stuff.
So there are many different ways to be generative, though. When we are constantly learning stuff, we're leading through competency. And let me talk a little bit about what I mean by that. Because, and what I'm talking about is a little bit different than what you're talking about. When you did move into a generative place, what I'm talking about is somebody that at 45 or 50 goes, yeah, this is all I'm going to do. And I will continue doing my whatever I'm going to do without learning any more about it. Where it's like, okay, I'm going to put in my time. And that's actually, interestingly enough, we often talk about being an older versus being an elder. When somebody goes, they sort of resign themselves to, yeah, this is what I'm doing, and I've learned enough. I'm just going to bite out my time till I retire and buy an RV and go travel around. That's different than the idea of you delving into being able to create more around technology, being able to help lead people in certain ways. And there's a piece. People oftentimes ask me how, because I always have new referrals for clients, and I've never advertised. And my advertisement is competency. That's how I market. Is I am competent, and I'm very highly competent in numbers of areas. Now, there are some areas which you and I had a bit of a discussion about before we got on, is I have like a -2 competency in computers. And we do get to make choices. But it's like we can lead through competency. We can market through competency. We can even create intimacy through competency around communication. We can. So what's interesting about it is, to me, competency is, there's never an end to being competent. There's never okay, now I am fully competent. And there's a balance.
If I were to hear someone say that, I would just start chuckling.
That they were fully competent. Yeah, it's like,
I mean, as evidenced by, look at our martial lives. Our martial lives are measured by belts, right? Which are some level of achievement, of competency.
right.
And in art, it's white, yellow, orange, red, blue, striped, and a black belt. And through that, by the time in our art, in Hapkido, by the time you get to the black belt, you have to show proficiency in about 240 individual skills, which you've done in time. And so you would think, I'm now competent. I have a black belt. That is a measure of competency. So why is it that Kimberly now has tested for her 5th degree black belt to become a master? Because when you become a black belt, and they don't tell you this, and it's a fun joke, is like, you're now the white belt of the black belts.
Right.
right? And now, oh, we couldn't tell you, there was no way for you to comprehend these other levels. You had not seen them. We couldn't let you know. And it's not like we weren't keeping a secret from you. It's you weren't ready to receive that.
Right.
Right? That's fair? So
Hmm.
let's now go back to education. Education feels so formal. Let's say learning. Yeah. But everybody understands what I'm talking about. I I wrote something down as we were talking, and I want to just explore this. Based on what I just said, is it possible for some things in life people are too young to learn?
Yes. I think that there are things that it's like, let me put it this way. This is what totally off the top of my head. There's a level of competency that I would say that at some point you get certain things in your bones. It's just there. That takes time. What I've seen, and I've seen this a lot in the therapeutic world, and I've seen a lot in the course world, is that there are people who are 35 years younger than me who have actually probably read more than I've read. They're studying and they've read this book and that book and listened to this podcast and gone and studied with this person. And it's like there's a there's a level of knowledge that they have, but it's not yet in their bones.
So this is, as you were saying that, I'm listening. I'm reminded of a show we did well over a year ago, that when it's in your bones, we could say it's deeply integrated, right?
Hmm.
Down to the DNA level. If it's in my bone marrow, it's in my DNA now.
Really?
That I am unconsciously competent,
Yes.
and that the person who is book smart, for that term, uh, is consciously competent. They're aware of how much they know. I'm aware that I
Hmm.
know those things, but I'm not unconsciously competent. Is that a fair way to describe what you've just described?
Yeah, it's a fair way to describe it. And what's really interesting about the unconscious competence is that there's also a level of going, and I still don't know that much.
So that's conscious incompetence. You're aware that you don't know.
Yes.
And I
And
think that's a level of enlightenment in and of itself.
yeah, so you know what? I had not thought about this, and maybe we could come up with this term because this is making a lot of sense to me. And, we talk about unconscious incompetence, which is the lowest part. It's like you don't know what you don't know, which is sort of that's where we begin. That's the white belt.
Mm-hmm.
And and in some ways, I do want to put this out. Some ways the white belt is the hardest belt to get because you have to make the decision to step in. In some ways, it's the hardest belt to get.
Yeah, that's so for people who don't who have not done studied martial arts, when you get on the mat, first time on the mat, you have to earn the white belt. And the white
Yeah.
belt, you have to earn that. You have to deliver, demonstrate some level of competency.
And a level of competency, but even more of a level of willingness.
Right, right, right. Because I'm thinking of our Tuesday night improv classes, which are drop in, and people will say, "Well, I've never done it." It's a drop in class.
Hmm.
And so, to your point, the fact that they took the initiative, got in the car, came and stepping onto the stage,
Hmm.
and not knowing anything demonstrates a willingness and intent to learn,
Hmm.
which by our definition now puts them in the running for a white belt.
Exactly. And not only that, you have to have something to tie your gi closed. So I just thought of that. It was like, okay. Um, which was funny. When I was that last class with Robert, my gi came open, my pants started sliding down. Like, okay, I gotta get dressed here again. But it's like, um, it's sort of going back to where we were, as the next level is conscious incompetence, where it's like, yeah, I don't know what I don't know. It's like I know that some, but boy, I know there's a lot out there. And there's conscious competence where it's like, and we have gone through these, but just repeat them. It's like, yeah, I know what I know, and I know I don't know everything. But then there's this unconscious competence. But as you're talking, what I'm wondering about is if there's actually another level above that.
Hmm.
And it might be, conscious incompetence 2.0. I don't know, but
It is it, as I'm trying to think of examples of unconscious competence, it is when we have reflexive ability. I don't have to think,
yes.
oh, I got it. I felt a thing happening. I react. I just react. I don't even know what happened. I think that's where, in my case, when I walk into improv and at the end of 14 minutes, which will happen tonight, and all the only judgment I have is there was a lot of applause. I have no idea
Hmm.
what I did because I trusted myself, right? I
Hmm.
trusted my competency and all the training that I've done, that
Yeah.
I can just trust that I know what to do, and I can reflexively with it's not thinking, right? Isn't that what it is? Is it not thinking?
Well, I think it is. It's not thinking, and it's coming from your core. But let me share what I'm pondering here. I rode Moon Thursday, and it was a great ride. We rode for about 2.5 hours. At about a third of the way into the ride, we were going up this new trail that he got spooked about something,
Mm,
and he did not want to go forward. And I worked with him in a number of different ways. and and then it came to a point where I actually had to make a decision. And the decision was, do I let this settle for him right now and actually stop asking him to go? Do I get off and walk him through a tough place when I'm on the ground so he feels safer and led? Do I, um, and I had like 20 or 30 things going through my mind of what do I do, and what do I do that's relational with him? What do I do that's good for him? What do I do that's good for me? And all of that was a combination of, I knew it in my bones, meaning that I was totally calm while he was like spinning and doing all kinds of stuff. And then on an intellectual level, or sort of and it was more, I don't know if intellectual is the right word, but more of a problem solving level. It's like, what would end up being the best for him? What I ended up doing was, he didn't want to go straight down the trail. When we would go a certain place, he would veer off. So I actually got him back on the trail and backed him up down the
mm,
trail for about, it was 30 or 40 feet, for two reasons. One, to get past the stuck point, but two, to change the setup of what was going on to disturb the homeostasis of the fear.
mm,
And that's
mm,
the
mm,
part that was in my bones.
mm,
And it took me a few minutes to figure that out. And then we backed up, and then I just actually let him stand there and grounded, and then we walked out. I'll probably go down there next Tuesday and write again. We'll give it another shot and see what happens. But it was like, how do we go beyond what we already know unconsciously? And that's the place that I'm talking about, that is generative. It's like, yeah, I know a lot, and I could actually sort of just slide my way through this because I know so much. And it's like, I don't want to stop there. I don't want to stop there. I want to experiment with something more.
mm, mm, mm. There's possibly this is how we can figure this out. So we know what a bell curve looks like. I'm so
Ooh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm a slave to my visual thinking.
No,
Um,
I'm totally following you. It's like good
so
thought.
if it's a bell curve that of competency, then if we just cut out 80% of it, okay, yeah, got it. There's this 10% up here where it's just we're totally not. But up it's at that the leading edge of that is where you're is like, oh, there's a little more there. There's still a little more to go. To your point exactly. And
Mm,
that's where I'm most comfortable is leading from the edge.
yes,
There you go.
very nice.
That's it,
So
boss.
here's a I can may I add on to this? This is
You
like a
may.
yes, 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 and here's what's interesting, and this is left over from my physics and mechanical engineering days.
Huh?
That bell curve, when it goes up, it's always on an axis. There's a vertical and horizontal axis. Vertical axis is the top point. We know plus and minus one deviation is somewhere around. I think my memory is right. It's either 64 or 68% of everything in the bell curve is between those 2 points. But as you go up toward the higher end of it, that bell curve, even though it gets really close to the horizontal axis, it never touches it.
Right.
It never touches it. It goes to infinity.
Someone
And
calls that the long tail.
yeah. And I love the metaphor of that because it's like, and I think this goes back to when you said or asked a question is, can people be too young to learn something? And the answer is yes. And it's not because people aren't smart. It's just because they haven't had the experience. They just have not had the experience.
I'm getting us t-shirts that say elder, not older.
Perfect.
I love you, man.
Love you.